ready to put this to bed.
I'm ready to go back to bed.
I just look, it's one thing when you're doing a single game for the NBA Finals. It's another one when you're trying to determine the 8th seed in the West.
I know. We've really only had like one or two good playing games.
It's amazing that the all those shitty teams don't create good games.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Awesomeo.com NBA strategy show. Hopefully the last showdown we do for a while, but we're here talking about it, and there is, once again, a ton of money to be made. So what's it matter, right? $500,000, $100K up top on Draftkings again for tonight's slate between the Warriors and the Memphis Grizzlies. I'm Dave Loughran on Twitter at Loughy_D, LOUGHY_D, joined by Josh Engleman at Josh Engleman. I'll tell you, man, Indiana goes in, welcomes the Hornets to, I think it's Bankers Life Fieldhouse or something. I'm pretty certain that's accurate. And they smoke them. And then they get the Wizards, and they get embarrassed just as bad as the Hornets were embarrassed by them. So I don't know. Outside of Golden State and the Lakers and then Memphis and San Antonio, it's been ugly. But here we are, Golden State, Memphis. This could actually be a solid game. My assumption is Steph Curry lights them up and they secure the 8th seed. What's going on, man?
What's going on? I assume Golden State wins as well. That anything can happen here. It's more fun, clearly, if Golden State wins. But I would rather see, in a weird way, I would rather see Memphis be able to get a couple playoff games for their future, because there's nothing really going on for Golden State. No matter what happens this year, we're looking at them at a very different lens for next year, regardless of these outcomes. So I'd like to see Memphis actually get in, just get a little bit of playoff experience, because I think they have a really bright future. That would be fun to see.
For sure. And let me just say, Jonas Valančiūnas is a stud. I mean, Could you imagine, right? Just hypothetically speaking, if we saw him average like 36 minutes per game, he'd be a 10K player probably.
Yeah, I mean, I have him projected for like 18 and 14 or 18 and 15 or something really crazy today. He's a monster double. If he could exist like 25 years ago, God, we would look at him in such a different light.
Oh, no doubt about it. Listen, if he played 35 minutes per game, he's basically averaging 50 fantasy points per game. You know, if you're averaging 50 fantasy points per game, you're getting up close to that 10K range, at least through parts of the season. You know, he's just
exceptional.
He is. And the thing about him too is he's a great scorer, but he's a great rebounder too. And then once in a while, he's going to give you those games with the massive shot blocks. Like he only averages 1 block on the game, but recently he's had wild shot block totals. So when you add all of that up, plus the double, you're sitting real pretty. And we'll get into all of that between these two teams. Only one game today. I'm actually very curious to know how you think this plays out for Joval against a Golden State front court that, you know, might not look imposing on the surface, but can actually make life a little bit difficult for you just based on how this team functions. Now, all of that and more, we're going to dive into that. But first, No House Advantage, sponsor of the strategy show. If you haven't played there yet, well, I don't know what you're waiting for. You've got the Awesemo promo that'll get you $20 when you sign up, just by signing up, depositing, and using the promo code Awesemo, AWESEMO, and all of the tools to win on that site. All the tools you need to win on a peer-to-peer player prop. I think we agreed on format, Josh, player prop format over there.
Yes.
Tournament structure, GPP style, the same as you would do on any of these other sites, except in this case, it's player props, putting each of them into your lineup, 8 of them, the highest confidence, the one you believe in the most, that you think is going to hit at the highest percent. You put that at the top, that gets the most points. The one you're least confident in goes at the bottom. But all the tools you need to win are over at Awesomeo.com, and they're entirely free as well. That's the greatest part about all of this. They're totally 100% free. So you can use the player prop tool. You can use the optimal lineups tool, all of that stuff without having to sign up at Awesemo, without having to pay a cent. And you go over and get your free $20 injected into your account by using the promo code Awesemo. So check it out. Go to No House Advantage and win some money. Build your bankroll up. Even if you were to eventually take it and try and chase the $100,000 cash top prizes like you've got tonight on some other sites, even if you're trying to do that, go and build a bankroll up there and put yourself in a good position going forward. Plus, Josh, football season's coming up soon. No better time to start building that bankroll up than now.
Yeah, you got to get it a little bit higher so that you could lose it all in the NFL. Trust me.
Well, the thing is, it's like in the NFL, you can lose it for 8 straight weeks and then have a massive week. You got to build it up if you're playing tournaments in football, for sure.
Unrelated to that question, I have a question for you.
Please.
How old is Jonas Valančiūnas?
Well, I was crying for them to play him with the Raptors a while ago, but I'm going to say, see, this goes one way or the other. I'm going to go on the low end. I'm going to say 29.
He just turned 29 like 2 weeks ago.
Oh,
there was a time.
Am I good?
There was a time where he was on the Raptors and his contract was an albatross that they weren't able to trade. I felt like he was 35 when I was thinking about that.
Dude.
He hasn't even turned 30 yet. He's played through a contract that people hated, signed another one just like that, and is certainly, I would say, at his peak right now. It's crazy to think about.
Yeah, he never got any respect in Toronto ever. I mean, it was so sad watching him. It was under Dwayne Casey, and no matter how well he played, he'd get his 20 minutes off the bench or even as a starter. It just wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter. But yeah, I figured he was like 28, 29 because he hasn't been around that long. He's just never gotten the starting minutes that he deserves. So it would be interesting to see them get into the postseason just to see what him and Morant can do. But against Utah, I mean, it's going to be a beating. The reason I think I'd like to see Golden State more is very simple. If there's ever an 8 seed that's going to beat a 1 seed, they might have Steph Curry on their team because of what he's capable of doing. I still don't think it's possible. I don't think the surrounding cast is nearly good enough. And, Andrew Wiggins is the most like he made some amazing plays and then some of the worst plays I've ever seen in that game against the Lakers. You just don't have a lot there. The outside of Steph and Draymond, you're just praying that these guys don't screw up enough to lose you a game.
Yeah, they're a guy short of being able to pull off the series win. Steph will shoot them into a victory, potentially even 2 victories just by being insane. I don't think that it's possible. They don't have enough firepower to get there for all.
Imagine
4.
if Clay
and if Memphis makes the playoffs, I think that they get full on waxed pretty quickly. Yeah.
Yeah, and as much as I love Joval, and as much as I was saying, I don't care as much about the Jakob Poeltl defense. Like Rudy Gobert is a different breed when it comes to defense, and not just individual defense, but also the way he affects the entire team. That's not going to be easy for anybody down low to make an impact. But imagine if Klay Thompson returned like 2 weeks before the season ended and they still got the 8 seed. And then it was fun. Klay, Steph, and Dre against Utah.
It'd be fun, man. It'd be real fun.
You'd be looking at, if you're the Jazz and the Suns, you'd be looking at the landscape and saying, this sucks. We worked all season to get the 1 and 2 to secure the 1 and 2 seed. Like you got Curry, Clay, and Dre, and I'm facing LeBron and Anthony Davis. I mean, seriously, how shitty is that to be the 2-seeded Suns that played so well all season long, and they've got LeBron, Davis, and the reigning NBA champions.
Yeah, the underdogs in their first round series for, I would imagine, one of the first times ever. I'm really curious to see what Golden State does in this offseason. They've got ammo to make moves, and I think that they're going to have to do that. I just don't know what that move is going to be, but I don't think this team just looks like it does now next year. Obviously, adding Clay, but that's not what I mean. They can make a legitimate move, and I just don't know what it's going to be. But I'd be surprised if they stand pat.
You don't think Andrew Wiggins is the answer?
Well, I mean, that's fine. But like, to me, I don't mind him being there. I think that he could potentially be salary ballast for whatever deal they're looking at. They've got Wiseman. They've got this Minnesota pick, which probably conveys. If it doesn't, it's fully unprotected next year. That is probably the biggest draft asset that exists in the NBA right now. That combination of stuff can get you something pretty big. I just don't know what that would be.
Do you think Wiggins can be the 6th man in a scenario where they have Clay, Steph, Dre, and then add an additional piece to the starting lineup?
I don't think they could add an additional piece to the starting lineup without Wiggins leaving.
Okay. Yeah, you're probably right.
It's just a money thing. I think he would have to be the guy that's going out. But yeah, of course. I mean, he's sort of like the perfect six man.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it feels like it. Anyway, hit that thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. And, if you want to join, we've got some cool stuff coming down the pike. We've been working on this to make it more beneficial to the people that have joined the membership, but also take nothing away from those who are subscribers at Awesomeo.com. It's a fine line you have to walk there, Josh, right? Yeah. Because we got some cool stuff. If you join over here in the membership for YouTube, it's like $2.99, but also there can't be anything that takes away from any subs at Awesomeo, the site itself. So, we got some stuff in the works. It's going to be pretty cool. But anyway, hit that thumbs up. What's that?
I was just agreeing.
All right. Subscribe to the channel too. That helps us more than anything. You couldn't even imagine how much that helps us. Memphis Grizzlies, Josh. We'll start it off with Joe Val in the front court. How do you see this matchup playing out against the Warriors team that is actually a top 5 defensive rated team? You saw that last game against the Lakers, 103 to 100, 203 total points, went under the total by 15. I mean, it was a defensive battle for large stretches of that game. A lot of turnovers, a lot of great stops by the Golden State Warriors, and more than anything, just completely stifling Anthony Davis and LeBron James at times, taking everything away when they try and set up in the half court. It was really a defensive battle on both sides.
Yeah, I think Joe Val looks pretty good here. The only real body they can throw at him is Looney, and that'll be a very interesting matchup. They're going to need Looney out there for most of that Joe Val time. Otherwise, it's going to at least become a little bit problematic for the Golden State side. I think they'd probably be okay trading 2s for 3s for like little stretches. But it's going to be a really interesting spot for Looney. I do like Joe Val on DraftKings. I have him. So the problem here, I have everybody in what I'm assuming is the starting lineup for the Grizzlies as basically the same play, just given the way that their salaries have broken out. Dylan Brooks, Jaren Jackson, Joe Val, Morant, and Kyle Anderson, all between 42 and 49% likelihood of being in the optimal on DraftKings. It's all just smack dab the same. On the FanDuel side, Joe Val's $14,500. He's $2,000 more expensive than Ja Morant. So I do like Joe Val, but he's only $500 cheaper than Steph. Now, I do think that he has the second highest projection in this game as well. I'm not surprised by it. But he's a very clear, not top option on FanDuel. I prefer getting to Morant and to Jaren Jackson before getting to Joe Val, but you get to those guys in different ways. You're more likely to play up for Joe Val in the MVP spot and not have him at utility, where someone like Morant at 12.5, you could play clear across the board in any one of the spots on FanDuel.
Yeah, the Joe Val price is pretty intense, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Joe Val price is, I can't help but look at that. And see, even on DraftKings, it's not like they're that far separated, right? I mean, in the utility, they're what, 11.4 and 10,000. I guess if you're projecting though, and this is where I think it's important. If you are projecting, say, 36 minutes for Joe Val, and I think that's more than reasonable. Wouldn't be surprised if he played 38 again. But if you're projecting 36 for him, which he's played 36 or more in back-to-back games now, 36 or more in 3 of his last 5. I don't have an issue projecting him somewhat close to Steph, just based on the per minute production. He's almost a 1.4 DraftKings point per minute guy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I think he looks really good. Like, I have him 9 points behind Curry, but he's still second most. I actually think there's some value here in Joe Val in the star spot on FanDuel. Like, we've got him projected for 15% ownership in the utility spot. I would recommend not rostering him in the utility at all. He's either going to be at the top because of that salary or not a part of that lineup. So that would be one of the first places that I would look. If you're playing Joe Val, if you don't have him in one of the multiplier spots, you shouldn't have him in your lineup, period.
What about Jaren Jackson coming off a 31-minute game? If he stays out of foul trouble, granted, he's like a 7 fouls per 36 guy this year. It's been an issue with him, not just this season, but pretty much every season since he entered the NBA. But when he's out there, he's at least a viable enough player. He's a +1 per minute guy What do you do with someone like Jaren Jackson today?
So he's 10-5 on FanDuel. To me, he's the second best overall option from the Grizzlies, but I almost exclusively like him in the utility spot. You can get a little bit of pro exposure, and we're seeing that in the ownership right now. Very, very small amounts of star. I wouldn't put him in the MVP spot, but at the utility spot, I think he's going pretty dramatically under-owned. So I do like getting to Jaren Jackson at utility. If we look at him on DraftKings, where he's 7,200, he's a okay captain option there. I think he's more of like a 5%er. We have him projected for a bit more ownership than that. We have him at 8%. To me, like that sounds about right. I've got him at 40% at the flex. We have him at 36% ownership. So he seems pretty good. To me, he's just sort of like a neutral play. There's so much risk that, and it's crazy because if you know that he's playing 32 minutes, you also probably assume that he's playing really well. And if you know that he's playing 20 minutes, you know that he just doesn't have enough volume to get you there for anything. So he's a perfect GPP play, be a very tough guy to get to from a cash game perspective. I think his ownership is pretty accurate for right now.
You know, it does kind of feel like John Morant here coming in with significantly lower ownership right now than Valančiūnas on DraftKings. Like half the captain spot ownership, probably, I mean, what 53% to 35% ownership in the or overall.
Yeah.
I know that Joval just has an easier path to putting up big games because of the way he produces. And I mean, I think that's definitely worth keeping in mind. But John Morant going a little bit unnoticed on a showdown slate. What do we do with him today? Buried or not buried, but kind of sandwiched in between the likes of Joval and Dre and Wiggins and Curry. He's kind of just in a no man's land kind of position there.
Oh, you play him a lot. I would hope so. Yeah. I think that 5% captain ownership is half of what it should be. He's my favorite captain in GPPs in terms of getting leverage over the field. I think we all know the fact that Steph Curry is the best overall play in this game. It should take a lot for anybody to understand that piece of information. But for Morant, I want to double up or more on his captain ownership. I like him significantly more in the flex spot as well. I think he is dramatically under-owned on the DraftKings side. On the FanDuel side, he's really weird. I rarely see guys that have quality exposure across every piece of the lineup. Because the raw point ceiling is so important on FanDuel, you usually see guys get concentrated into one or two spots. I've got Morant at 9% for MVP, 17 at star, 17 at pro, and another 9 at utility. You can literally put him anywhere. I do think he's going under-owned quite a bit. And much like I said for Joval before, I think he's going over-owned at the utility. I think he's under-owned at MVP. I think he's under-owned in the star and pro spot. Those are the places that I would like to get to John Morant a little bit more, because I think that you could pick up a little bit of additional leverage over the field. I'm not sure why we're projecting Morant as low as he, well, I don't mean it like that. I'm not sure why people aren't playing John Morant as much as it appears that they are, but I think he looks fantastic. To me, he's the best option from Memphis on FanDuel. He's the second best option on Memphis from DraftKings, but that is not where the ownership is pointing.
Okay, good stuff. And I don't disagree with you. That was the one spot that to me really stood out as, all right, something looks, like you and I talked about it yesterday on the deeper dive, that there are spots that you can look to exploit. And sometimes it's a really cheap player. Other times it might be a good player that people assume is overpriced, or just decide that the other players around him at a similar price point are a little bit more expensive, a little bit cheaper, are better options there. So I want to close out Memphis like this, right? Because we know that this is a spot where Taylor Jenkins in the past has run super deep rotations. He still ran 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He ran a 10-man rotation, but Grayson Allen only Right. Grayson Allen played 5 minutes.
Yeah, he was bad too. They got waxed when he was on the floor.
Yeah, and he was the last guy off the bench as well. So Grayson Allen was, get this, dude. This is insane. Ready? In less than 5 minutes, Grayson Allen was minus 17.
Yeah, it was really bad.
That's crazy.
It was so bad they talked about it on the broadcast while it was happening, and you rarely hear that kind of thing.
I mean, you have to like how much of that's Grayson Allen, how much of that's just San Antonio going on a run.
But both.
Yeah, but right. But I'm saying like
look, they didn't lose by 17 specifically because Grayson Allen played bad for 5 minutes, but like you're definitely not bringing anything to the table for that to happen either.
Sure. Yeah. Now what I was getting at though is it was actually a condensed rotation despite the fact that there were 10 bodies. What I mean is John Morant played 41 minutes. Anderson played over 32. Jovel played 38. Dylan Brooks played 40, and Jaren Jackson played 31. Meanwhile, Desmond Bane got the most minutes off the bench at 25. Nobody else played more than 11. Floor is yours to break down the rest of this team. But I think it's important we look at how he's going to operate a playoff-style rotation.
Yeah, you missed what I thought is like sort of the most interesting piece of it. Brandon Clark didn't play.
Yeah, that is a very interesting point. You're right. And
Melton I'm not shocked, but that's crazy.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, we're talking about a guy that was he second in Rookie of the Year or third in Rookie of the Year? And like, he's a really good per minute guy generally. Like, to me, he's like a smart player, a guy that you want out there for at least some sort of rotation. Didn't see the floor. They went to Tillman, which I thought was kind of crazy. This feels a little bit more like a Brandon Clark game than a Tillman game, but I guess it all just sort of just depends on what they want to do and how the game's breaking down. So on the Memphis side, I guess I'll start on the DraftKings portion of it all because we've touched on most of it. I think Slow-Mo is probably my favorite overall option from Memphis. He's 6,600, just sort of works as a value play. I have him slightly more in the optimal than our current ownership. So I see a little bit of leverage there. The guy that we really need to talk about to me, $7,600 Dylan Brooks. I've got him with a 6% chance of being in the captain spot. We're only projecting 3% ownership. I've got him with a 36% chance of being in the flex spot. We only have him at 23. That's another spot where I think that you can create a lot of leverage in your lineup build. He's going to play 34 plus minutes, 36, 38. They want him out there for defense. He's always looking for his own shot. Now, he could shoot poorly. Like, he could shoot them clean out of the game. He does have that kind of gear in him, but he's also going to be giving it his all every single possession. That guy works his ass off on the basketball floor. And if he's only at 27% ownership, I've got him at 42 aggregate. He'll be one of the guys that I am most over the field on. I assume I have like 70, 80% Dylan Brooks, just given where the numbers are right now. I have a very hard time recommending Bane, Allen, Jones, Melton, Tillman. They all grade out really poorly. I think they're all going significantly over-owned, Jones and Melton in particular. So that's where I'm looking right now on the DK side. On the FanDuel side, I have the exact same thought process on Dylan Brooks. He's a little overpriced, but I think he's a pay up to be contrarian option. I think that he should be twice as owned as we're currently projecting. The guy that I'm most interested in, though, from Memphis, and we touched on it already, is definitely Ja Morant at 12.5.
Yeah, me too. And Dylan Brooks, if he plays, as you're talking about it, if he plays another 40 minutes or even 38 minutes, then he's just too cheap. He's just too cheap.
And he's going to play those minutes as long as, if this game is competitive, Dylan Brooks is playing 36 minutes. They're not going to somebody else.
No, I don't see any reason why they would. It was nice. Taylor Jenkins gave that rotation a bit of a haircut. Strange, like you said, that it was Brandon Clark involved in getting his hairs trimmed. But yeah, it's kind of strange. There's no doubt about that. All right, one down, one to go here. Before we do, remember all of our content at Awesomeo.com. on the YouTube platform can be listened to in podcast form. So you want to check out Awesemo podcast like this show, any show that have even a semblance of a shelf life, go to the Apple Podcast, go to Spotify, wherever you want. Leave a review and a rating while you're at it. We greatly appreciate that. And of course, check out all the free content we have, premium tools that are in front of paywall today, NBA player rankings, the MLB top stacks. That's the greatest tool out there. NHL player projections and the MMA ownership projections. And if you're looking to get more Showdown action in and you want to have the access to the best tools out there, if you check out the promo code play-in hyphen, right? Play, not, you don't spell hyphen. Actually, the easiest way to do this would be to go to awesomeo.com/promos, and then you can just click on the promo right there and you don't have to type anything in. It's the Express Pass, usually $4.95 a week for NBA. Gives you a bunch of tools, but also everything for Showdown. All of our Showdown content, all of our Showdown tools. You get that week and you get an additional week entirely free on top of that. That's good through today. After today, it's gone. But for $4.95, you get both weeks of Awesemo plus NBA Express Pass both weeks, $4.95. Go to awesomeo.com/promos. Check that out. All right, Josh, let's, and you have the expert Slack chat. I meant to mention that you can still get in the chat with the Express Pass and join the office hours where you have pros answering your questions every day and the community in there talking DFS. And I would imagine, you have access to more than just the NBA channel as well. All right, Golden State. We'll start it with Stephen Curry. How much captain spot ownership do you think you get on Curry today?
More than the public, which is kind of crazy. We have him projected for 25%. I had him coming in the optimal 33% of the time. So even still, I think you still want to get to Steph. I don't want to say the more fun one because I'm spot on with the public. 65% ownership in the MVP spot on FanDuel. And that's exactly what I agree with. The chances of him being the highest raw scorer on the slate are basically 66%.
Wow.
It's nuts, man. It's truly nuts.
What are the chances of Joval being the highest raw scorer on the slate?
He has the second highest MVP optimal odds at 15%.
Okay. So him and Curry make up like over 80%.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I was wondering. Yeah.
And then you get like little bits of Morant, Wiggins, Draymond. That kind of closes it out for anything crazy. Very tiny amount of Dylan Brooks. But yeah, Curry in the captain spot, like it's very clearly the first guy that you're putting into a lineup, depending on where that is. I actually think that he is slightly, and this is usually the case for some of these more expensive guys. I think he's slightly under-owned at captain and over-owned at the flex. So I would try to get more Curry in the captain spot, depending on how big the contest you're in is.
You know, the Grizzlies have, not that this matters, right? Because it's one game. Like I was saying to you guys yesterday, it didn't matter that yesterday's game was between two of the fastest paced teams and two of the, most lowly defenses in the league because it's the only game out there. But right. The Memphis Grizzlies have actually played pretty solid defense this season. And recently, I think over the last month and a half, they've come down a little bit middle of the road, but they're top 10 in defensive rating on the year. They're top 8 in pace. So again, it doesn't really mean much, but I wouldn't be surprised that this is yet another relatively low scoring game. We'll see. We'll see how it plays out, but it doesn't really matter because you get to Stephen Curry literally no matter who he's playing, and you just move on after that, Josh. So who do we move on to after that one? Oh, and just to point this out, that last Memphis game between them and the Spurs was 100-96. Golden State was 103-100. If this game, if you were asking me, you're going over under on 221 between a top 5 defense and a top on the season 10 defense, and two teams that, in terms of pace, sure, they can speed it up a little bit, but I think this could be another grind out type of performance. Unless Curry just goes insane, I would take the under here once again. What are you doing with the rest of the Warriors?
Two guys I'm looking at most. They are my second and third ranked guys for the Golden State Warriors, and I have them pretty significantly over their current ownership. The first one up is going to be Andrew Wiggins, 8,200. I've got him at a 10% chance of being in the optimal. That's slightly higher than our current ownership. I've got him at 10% being the optimal captain, 44% optimal in the flex, where we only have him at 36. So Wiggins is one of the guys that I want to take a pretty large stand on. And then Kevon Looney, I've got him a 3% chance of being in the captain spot at 4,600. To me, he's a little over-owned at captain, but I think he's massively under-owned at the flex. I'm thinking that he has to play 28 to 30 minutes just to try to deal with Joval. And if he's out there, he's going to get some rebounds. 4,600 is not a problem. We only have him at 38% ownership. I think that it should be 53. So he is my preferred value option coming from Golden State. The guy that I don't like all that much, I think that Draymond is going pretty over-owned at 8,800. 14% odds of being in the captain. I don't love that ownership right now. 48% ownership in the flex. I think that is massively too high. So I actually like fading Draymond a bit in this spot.
Okay. I remember not long ago, you had the Golden State Warriors playing back-to-back games against the New Orleans Pelicans, right? In one of those games, Kevon Looney played 32 minutes. In the other one, he played 22 minutes. The biggest difference there was in the game where he played only 22 minutes, there was no Zion Williamson. And I think that, or no, I'm sorry. The one where he did play, there was a Zion. There was no, was it Steven Adams? I can't remember which it was. I'd have to go back and look, but I know that from a match, I'd have to look. I remember this off the top of my head. Let me see here. There was one of them though where the Pelicans just went significantly bigger in the front court, and Kevon Looney ended up playing 32 minutes. There are other games too where you look against Utah. He played 30 minutes over the 4 games before the season was out. There are spots where Looney, and I would assume not every time, but oftentimes it's because of what this front court is going to look like. I don't know if you can get away with not playing him at least significant minutes or more than he has averaged on the season when Wiseman is out, given that Joval has the potential to dominate based on size alone. And I don't think Draymond Green can handle that across 48 minutes.
I think it's not so much like the defensive matchup, it's the rebounding. If they don't have Looney out there, then the Warriors have to make their first shot a lot, because Joval is going to clean up the glass if Kevon Looney is not on the floor. There's not going to be anybody out there capable of matching him on the board. So that's really the big thing. Joval generally is going to have a worse game today if the Warriors are shooting really well, especially on their first look. If they're knocking down their first shot, that limits Joval considerably. Then they can go a bit smaller because the rebounding differential isn't going to be as big of an issue. So that's actually what I'm watching for this game. How well are the Warriors shooting early? Because the better they're shooting, the less they need Looney.
Yes, and that's why there was this thing on that was basketball analytics book, right? I got it somewhere back here. Yeah, there it is right there. Basketball analytics. It's a great book. It never became like popularized in the basketball world, but it was really good. And there was a thing that they came up with called 2 for you, 3 for me. This is back when the Golden State Warriors had Clay, they had Steph, they had a team that was just purely dominant. Where who
else they had? The Barnacle of the Bay.
The Barnacle of the Bay. That's right. And if you play some 2K Sims, he actually might knock down some game-winning 3-pointers as well. But Josh, it was essentially saying this team is willing to give you that 2-pointer around the basket because they'll just come down and knock down a 3, which is worth more than your 2-pointer. And does that always work? Well, no, not if you're not hitting threes. But when you shoot threes at such an extreme clip as they do, essentially you're shooting threes at the same clip that their opponents shoot 2s in terms of converting them into baskets. You can give them those buckets because they'll just take 3-pointers and knock them down and beat you that way.
100%. I don't know what else to say there. I totally agree with you. Yeah. Good book, by the way.
Oh, have you read it?
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure. It was
anything in the analytics realm for baseball or basketball that is on my bookshelf.
It just was never like a popular one, Yeah. There's also the acronym that they used called PISS. PISS. Poor something shot selection. And the first guy that they showcased was DeMar DeRozan.
Yeah. Well, he takes bad shots.
Yeah.
He takes really bad shots. I still follow Chris Baker on Twitter.
Do you?
Yeah.
The other guy's name was Shea something.
Stephen Shea.
Stephen Shea, right. That's right. Yeah. Who else do you got for Golden State today?
Oh, man. So this is not one that I was expecting to happen, and it's certainly not anything that I'm excited for given the playing time, but he did get 21 minutes this last time out. Michael Mulder is 2,200. We have him projected for 29% ownership. I think he is the preferred pay down option. He's like the Alex Len, Robin Lopez for today. He's 2,200. I have him in the optimal lineup 42% of the time because I just prefer getting to Steph Curry and you need to save some salary somewhere. We only have him at 29. So I think there's a lot of leverage getting to someone like Michael Mulder. I think that Juan Toscano-Anderson and Kent Bazemore are basically appropriately owned. I think Jordan Poole's appropriately owned. They're only going to play 8 guys. It wouldn't even shock me if they crunch that rotation even more. But I think Golden State is pretty predictable. The moral of the story is play Steph as much as you want. Play Wiggins and Looney more than the public. Play Draymond less than the public. Play Michael Mulder more if you're looking to spend additional salary.
Painfully ill-advised shot selection. That's what it was.
There you go.
It's a good one.
I couldn't remember what it was.
Yeah, that was it. So we've got both teams out of the way. Now, from a strategy perspective, if you're over on DraftKings, where unlike FanDuel, where you have the MVP, you have the star, you have the pro, but none of the salaries actually change depending on where you put them.
Yeah.
On DraftKings, how easy is it to make a decent lineup with, say, Steph Curry, captain? Now, mind you, he's still, $3,000 in the captain spot less than more. I think it was like 3,400 less than Westbrook was yesterday. So it's not that egregious of a price at all on Steph Curry at 17-1. If you plug him in there and then you decide that you want to go with Ja Morant, how comfortable do you feel that you can make a decent lineup? Because I think it's very, very doable.
You said Steph and Ja?
Steph in the captain, Ja as your first in the utility. We're not playing Joval here.
Well, let's find out. I'll run my crunch on my data right now.
Sweet, let's do it.
All right, so my optimal lineup is Steph at captain, Mulder, Looney, Slow-Mo, Ja, and Joval, 227.85. So now you're saying you want to lock Steph at captain and Ja, correct?
Yeah, well, because, and another reason for this is
it's going to be it's the same lineup. That's my optimal has that scenario.
There you go. Okay. And that's kind of what I was curious about, just given that we both really like Ja Morant in the spot, whereas ownership currently sits lower than it should. He has the ceiling. It's Ja Morant. Like, what's the range of outcomes for someone like him? Do you have that? What's his floor and ceiling? Because we've seen some really bad games from him and some really huge games from him this year. He seems like he's all over the map, which is perfect for a showdown slate like tonight.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was saying before, where he could be rostered in literally every spot on FanDuel, and it makes sense. And I rarely see guys pick up optimal odds in all four spots, but I have everything that I have here. I can give you like his legitimate range of outcomes. Let me scoot over here. Ja Morant. Okay, so of all the sims that I ran, his 20th percentile outcome, so let's call that basically like his downside, was 32 DK points. I have him projected for 40, by the way.
Okay.
His upside, so we'll say his 80th percentile outcome, is 48. So 32 to 48 would be my recommended range of what you think you can get out of Ja Morant. On average, on DraftKings, when he was in the utility spot, he showed up there with 45 points scored when he was like the optimal utility guy.
Yeah.
So we're talking about him needing to be, basically like you need like a 75th percentile outcome from Ja Morant to expect him to be in the utility spot.
Okay. So it's doable.
Yeah. Look, I like him a lot today. It's a really weird scenario for someone like Ja, just because of how variable his stuff really is.
Who would you throw out there as just your top value option on either side of this one? Like, is it
Michael Mulder for sure on DraftKings?
Mulder for sure, and Looney, just given the projected minutes that you're going to get from him, he's not terribly expensive either. But Mulder is just really cheap.
Yeah, so like Looney would be I think that Looney is in an optimal more frequently than Mulder, but he's also $2,400 more expensive. I don't think that there's a big enough gap between their sim odds to say that it's not Mulder, but Looney would be two from a DraftKings perspective. On FanDuel, it's probably Jordan Poole. He's 7,500. We have him picking up ownership in the star and the pro spots. I would just skip that and just jam him utility the entire time. Looney would be the only other option. It's really hard to find any real value on FanDuel. Michael Mulder on FanDuel is a terrible play. On DraftKings, I think he's a fantastic play.
Do you think Melton could sneak in and grab some additional minutes, maybe some of those Bane minutes, maybe some of those Brooks minutes if Brooks plays a few less, or are we projecting him again for like 11 and a half minutes?
I don't see how we could project him for anything else other than that. Every time that we think he's going to get more minutes, he just doesn't get those minutes. No matter what happens, he only ever plays like 24 minutes. And look, 24 minutes of DeAnthony Melton at whatever the hell his salary is today is going to be a fantastic play, but it doesn't appear that he ever gets rewarded for that.
I know you didn't catch all of the game the other night, but at the start of the fourth quarter, the Warriors are tied. The Lakers make a run. This drove me nuts. Lakers make a run to close out the third quarter, tie it up, I think 96-96. Steve Kerr starts the fourth quarter without Dre without Steph Curry while LeBron and Anthony Davis are on the floor after they just tied it up.
Are you trying to tell me you don't think that's going to go well?
I'm telling you, it didn't go well at all. And he immediately calls a timeout like a minute later. Yeah, Eric Lindquist and I, Eric of Awesomeo.com as well, we're talking about it on Twitter. And he's saying, I hate how these coaches stick with the rotations no matter what. I said, yeah, like in the regular season, I'm fine with it. If you want to give your guy a break, there's no reason to start him and play him 12 minutes in the fourth quarter. But I mean, to act like there's any incentive or common sense in leaving LeBron and Davis out there where you have no offensive injection because Curry's out there and your best defensive players also watching from the bench. Do you not find that insane?
So yes, it's obviously like
I asked
ideal
you to set you up because I know that you always intentionally take a contrarian view on this and you're going to spill some wild nonsense shit at me and be like, well, it makes sense if, you know, you look at Mulder and you take Looney and you know, it. Go ahead.
I just don't care. Like they're going to get in eventually. Is it ideal? No. Do you know who's going to be coming in to start the fourth? No. Like if you see it immediately and you get Steph and Dre to the scorers table, like there's only so much you could do. You're just hoping for something to stop play. Yes, it is preposterous. And that group of five guys is going to get their asses handed to them by the Lakers when LeBron and AD are out there. I just don't think there's anything really that like you can do to stop it.
No. The only thing you can do to stop it is put your good players back in.
I don't disagree. Like how much did they play like how long were they in the third? Like were they already out in the third or had they just played like the final however much minutes? Because to me that matters.
Yeah, I mean I'd have to look, but
I'm getting the popcorn machine now.
I got it. So Curry played the whole third.
Curry and Dre played the entire third quarter. I don't think it's crazy to like give them the first minute or two. It just clearly didn't go well.
Yeah. I do think it's crazy only because if you look at the flow of that game, I know that Curry and Dre were out there when the Lakers started to go on their run, but like the last thing I want is to let them continue on that run, at least try and stop the bleeding first.
You're not playing. You can't play Curry for 24 straight minutes in that game. And that's basically what you're advocating for. Now you should want to, but at the same time, like dude's got to get a blow.
Anthony Davis played 24 straight minutes in the second half.
He did. Yeah. He did.
So you can play Curry 24 straight minutes.
I think it's a little bit different playing Anthony Davis for 24 straight minutes than it is for Steph Curry, who has to play at full bore, all out pace for 24 straight minutes.
Dude, Anthony Davis is knocking down, is out there in the front court doing battle with a physical player in Draymond Green. Like, I don't see that being any different. Either way. Curry
Steph can't take a possession off. Anthony Davis can take a ton of them off.
But dude, this is what I'm saying, right? Here's what I'm saying. If you're Kerr, you don't take both Dre and Curry out. If you want to give them both a rest, you stagger them, right? So you leave Dre in for a couple minutes and then you take him out, give him 2 minutes, put Curry back in. Like that would at least make sense. So you have some semblance of a functional basketball team.
I think the problem is the Lakers went on a 17-7 run to close out the third quarter. I'm going to assume that Kerr looked at Steph and Draymond and was just like, these dudes are gassed. Like I need to give these guys an extra minute or two if I can. And it didn't get a lot better after that stretch. They started off the fourth quarter on a 10-1 run. And that's really the biggest swing of this game. They went from the final 5 minutes of the third quarter to the first 4 minutes of the fourth quarter. The Lakers outscored the Warriors 27-8.
Yep. And a lot of that had to do with the Warriors turning over every single opportunity they had. But
they had 7 turnovers in that time span and shot 3 of 11 from the field, while the Lakers had 1 turnover, 10 assists, which is a crazy number to get in that amount of time, and 12 of 19 from the field.
I remember watching it and just thinking to myself, this is god awful, but I wanted them to win. They didn't. Hey, hit that thumbs up before we head out of here. Chris, let's go ahead and show off some of the Awesomeo avatars from across the industry with the Hall of Fame segment. Josh, P. Hanley. Oh, I'll get, okay. I was I guess I'm going in the wrong direction here. Is it different than on the Google presentation? That's okay. Anyway, we got one. I can't read any of these is the problem.
I can read this one. This one's really clear.
I can't.
Oh, sorry. The screenshots aren't.
Yeah, I got to do it I got to do it watching the YouTube screen. SF Deck. Before this, I remember this came a little bit short of the stat correction, but had that Awesemo avatar up there. 17,500 is huge. Our boy Phil, is it Peter Hanley? Yeah, just keeps dominating, keeping it real with no Stanley Johnson. Thanks, Dave, for giving me a great idea about taking that loan out. He means that when we had that conversation about 150 entries, 156,000. Is that right? Did he enter $69 and he won 156,000?
I don't think so.
Oh no, it's stat corrected. Right? But I think he still won like 50,000 or something crazy.
By the way, it's not going to be on here. Or at least I don't think it's going to be on here. He won Showdown last night for 14 grand.
I know, and that's the one I was looking for. This is another one from John Fleming, $500 up top in the NBA fadeaway. Congratulations, dude. And for those of you wondering, how do you get up here? How do you get your free month of Awesemo Plus? All you got to do is download the avatar, use it on your site of choice, tweet your wins at Awesemo Hall of Fame or HOF, and win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. It's $100 value. Go to awesemo.com/avatar to get that in there. Yeah, and then another one here, $600 off a $5 entry. Not a bad afternoon. Chris, do we not? Oh, and Neil Orfield again with $100,000 victory. Big thanks.
Light winnings for him on that one. He's used to getting another zero in that.
I know, right? Do we have? So I guess this is an older one because the one I was looking at had Hanley, it had DeColts, and Steve Buzzard, and it had Tom JK321, who is Awesemo's CEO. All of them chopping the Showdown on DraftKings for about 14,000 each.
You gotta love it. But going back to Peter Hanley's yesterday, he had the Gafford captain lineup. It was the second most optimal lineup yesterday.
All of those guys did.
He chopped down to 13-8. Yeah. The only I looked it up this morning. There was a lineup that was more optimal than the one that they had, but you had to have Cassius Stanley, who was basically not owned yesterday. But Cassius Stanley got it to 253.88, I believe.
It's funny because Cassius Stanley in the first game played, I think it was like 7 minutes off the back of the bench because of a blowout.
Yeah, it's so silly.
All right. Well, Josh, this will do it hopefully for Showdowns for the foreseeable future. Then we'll have some fun with some real basketball tomorrow and Sunday. But here's the good thing. Here's a good thing. It doesn't really matter, like I've said, whether we enjoy this Showdown discussion or not, because there's just monster prize pools across the industry, pretty much everywhere. And even if people are always worried about chopping them, you're looking at Hanley and who else was it? And Tom and Steve Buzzard, they chopped and it was still 14,000. So you could chop these and still make a lot of money doing so.
You're going to chop. Look, for all intents and purposes, you are always going to chop. Like, you don't have to. You got to start playing your Cassius Stanleys of the world, and you're going to hit this once a year, maybe. You're always going to chop. The key is to not chop with aggressive chalk. So you're chopping with 180 people or something like that. If you're chopping with 15 or 20, like you did that correct for the day. There's nothing you can do to really avoid that in Showdown. But if you're chopping with like 150, you might think you succeeded, but you kind of failed. Exactly.
All right, Josh, this has been fun. Thanks to you guys for hanging out. As always, hit that thumbs up, subscribe, and if you want to join, hit that little join button down there. Become a member. Welcome to Team Awesemo in advance. We'll catch you back here next time on the Strategy Show, Monday through Sunday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, presented by No House Advantage. Go use that promo code Awesemo and use all the free tools. And last thing, play in awesemo.com/promos, play-in. Get you the full week of Awesemo Express NBA and another week on top of that for the price of one. See you back here soon. Thanks for watching, guys.
I thought you were going to mention your voice and the allergies on the show. And I was kind of bummed because I had jokes lined up and it just never happened.
I'm glad I didn't. It hurts, dude. This is killing me right now.